Thank you, Ranking Member Portman. Senator Carper, you're recognized for your 7 minutes of questions.
7. Okay. To each of our witnesses, welcome. It's great to see you all again. Some of you I've known for a while and pretty well. And even though your families, and I just want to say, but just to begin with, we don't do these jobs by ourselves, whether you're on that side of the table or this side of the table. Our families put up with a lot, and we just want to thank your families for sharing you with us, especially as Thanksgiving approaches. First Secretary of Homeland Security was a guy named Tom Ridge from Pennsylvania, from Erie, Pennsylvania. We were both Vietnam veterans. And we were congressmen together, same freshman class. We were governors together for a number of years. He remains a very close friend. And I think back, I joined this committee, I was elected in, oh Lord, I want to say, 22 years ago. And Joe Lieberman said, when I tried to decide what committees to be on, he said, you should try to get on the Governmental Affairs Committee. And I said, well, I'm interested in that. He said, it's just a perfect fit for you, former governor, former state treasurer, care about things working well. And he said, you should join the committee. And I did. And 2 years later, 9/11 came along, and we ended up, the whole world changed. Our whole world changed. And the nature of the threats that we faced the day that Tom Ridge was sworn into office to be our secretary, and what we face today is unbelievable. It's just incredible how the world has changed in not so good ways. And I just want to say special thanks to each of you and the folks you work with to help us try to address and be ready for the threats that are coming our way almost every day. I'll start with Secretary Mayorkas, and in the second round of questions, if I'm lucky, I'll ask questions of our other two witnesses. But Mr. Secretary, again, my first question is to you. I know your job is not an easy one. Between leading a workforce of almost 250,000 people, whose duties range anywhere from aviation to border security, enhancing our nation's cyber posture, responding to natural disasters, protecting our homeland, I hope that everyone here today can respect that, and that your dedication and service to our nation is commendable. That goes for all three of our witnesses here today, and I thank you again for your service. As we continue to see a number of encounters at our southern border, the Department of Homeland Security has been leading a whole-of-government response to address these challenges and to help keep our borders more secure. And Mr. Secretary, can you just talk about some of the changes in migration patterns that we've seen at our southern border in the last year and a half, and what policies the department has put in place to address these challenges? Specifically, can you speak to the investments in border technology and legal migration pathways in your level of engagement with other countries in the region, given that the migration patterns have been a hemispheric challenge? Please.
Senator Carper, thank you for acknowledging the challenge that these positions present. Of course, the challenge is all relative. Ranking Member Portman mentioned the tragic loss of one of our frontline personnel. Several other were gravely wounded. I was briefed on the situation very early this morning. These are brave members of our air and marine operations within U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So the difficulty of this job cannot be compared to the difficulty that our frontline personnel face every day, and their bravery and selfless service should be recognized. And I appreciate Ranking Member Portman acknowledging that. The migration patterns in the hemisphere have changed dramatically. When I was the Deputy Secretary, we were very concerned about migration from the Central American countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. We have encountered now the highest level of encounters by Venezuelans, Cubans, and Nicaraguans. And that changed demographic makes the challenge even more acute because our diplomatic relations with these countries is obviously quite strained, and we're unable to remove as easily individuals from these countries of origin. Of course, we implemented thus far at an early stage a very successful response to the Venezuelan migration in particular. We have 6 lines of effort, Senator Carper. We have surged resources to the southern border: personnel, technology, facilities, transportation capabilities. We have increased our processing efficiency. We're increasingly digitizing our processes, modernizing them so that the intake process and the screening and vetting process is enhanced and more efficient. We are delivering consequences for unlawful entry. We have increased the level of prosecution of illegal entry when individuals seek to evade law enforcement. We have sought to bolster the capacity of non-governmental organizations and state and local jurisdictions. We are conducting an unprecedented disruption campaign against the smuggling organizations and the transnational criminal organizations. And we are also working very closely with our partners to the south to deter irregular migration. The declaration that was signed in the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles several months ago speaks powerfully of that. We need countries throughout the hemisphere to enforce their laws of humanitarian relief as well as their laws of enforcement. And so this is a multi-pronged effort to address a multinational challenge throughout the hemisphere.
Thank you for that response. Most of us are people of faith, and there's a verse of scripture in Matthew 25 that I think a lot of us are familiar with about the least of these. When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was thirsty, did you give me to drink? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was sick and in prison, did you visit me? When I was a stranger in your land, did you welcome me? When I was a stranger in your land, did you welcome me? The last one's hard. In fact, they're all pretty difficult, but the last one's especially hard. We, in an effort to try to reduce the likelihood that people are going to risk life and limb to come to this country and relocate here, we leave, in some cases, the hellacious conditions in which they live. They come many miles, hundreds of miles sometimes, to reach our borders. And some of us think that, why don't we give them the opportunity, if they want to come here, to actually go to our embassies or our consulates and let those intentions be known and to work from there. Would you respond to that idea, please, just briefly?
Senator Carper, our laws are laws of humanitarian relief and laws of accountability. We have an asylum system that is one of the sources of pride of our country, and we enforce the law. When an individual qualifies for humanitarian relief, they are, under the law, entitled to remain here. And if they do not qualify, they are to be removed, and we are enforcing the laws in every respect.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Carper. Senator Johnson, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr.